After David Hanley smashed his Cadillac into Martin McNally's plane at 80 miles an hour, Martin didn't give up. He just asked for a new plane. This new plane would need to be fully fueled and parked as close as possible. They would all have to move from the damaged plane to this new one without anybody making a run for it, and without anybody getting the chance to aim a gun at Martin.
Very nervous. I was very nervous. I would say I was even scared that that's a vulnerable position. And I told the pilot to tell the FBI on the ground that I know they got sharpshooters that are going to try to pick me off, and I know they have cameras trying to get photos, and if I see any lights or any beams, this thing could come to a screeching halt very quick with an explosion. I said, I don't want to see any hanky-panky when we make the move from plane to plane.
It took an hour and a half for it to arrive. When it did, Martin changed planes using 2 flight attendants for cover and holding his briefcase over his head. It was almost 2:30 in the morning when they took off in the new plane towards Toronto. He had hoped to take off from St. Louis by midnight and jump out of the plane by 1 a.m. But they were now hours behind schedule, which posed a problem because he knew he needed to jump before the sun came up.
And so that's what happened. I made the decision I had to bail out then. That's what I did.
But you had never used a parachute before.
Never in my life had I put on a parachute.
Did you have anyone who helped you on the plane? I mean, how did you even know how to put this thing on?
No. I tried to do it myself, get this harness situated. And as I'm doing this, the 4 stewardesses are standing around me. And I told one of them, I need to clip these leg straps. I need to get these leg straps put on properly. And at one point she says, I don't think we're supposed to be doing this. I said, young lady, believe me, trust me, you're supposed to be doing everything I tell you to do. Now let's get this harness taken care of. So that's what happened.
I mean, I'd be happy to get you off that plane. I'd be just ready to throw you out the door.
Yeah, I guess you would.
He used twine to tie the 45-pound mail bag full of money to his leg. He also threaded his belt through the loop of the bag to make it more secure. And then he was ready to jump.
I was very worried. And when I was on the plane just getting ready to bail out, I had second thoughts, and I said, yeah, this is precarious. I have some options here. I can go up to the cockpit and give him the gun and tell him this is a joke, or I can kill myself, or I can take a chance on bailing out. I decided, well, I better bail out. And if I make it, fine. If I don't, death comes quick.
He jumped. He could only see the clouds below him. The goggles were ripped off of his head. He counted to 20 and pulled the ripcord. And when he did, the jolt of the parachute opening was so hard, the buckles on the belt holding the money bag snapped. The twine wasn't enough to hold the bag alone, and the bag went flying. The money was gone.
And I said, I'm going to do this again in 2 weeks. And I landed on the ground. Yeah. And then my head slammed against the dirt, and I jumped up, and I could see stars, and I heard a lot of dogs barking. I mean, the dogs must have known something was up. But I started walking towards the trees because I knew I couldn't get a car with my head being smashed up like it was. It was pitch dark, 100%. I laid down the parachute and crawled into the parachute and went to sleep. I think it was about 5 o'clock p.m. that I actually got up and brushed off my clothes and my shoes, shined my shoes a little bit, put the parachute under the tree and over some leaves, and headed out to a road.
Martin had no idea where he was, but he assumed the FBI was already looking for him. He decided to hitchhike into town. Finally, a car stopped for him.
The chief of police, he was something. He was with his wife, and this was about 10 o'clock. He stopped. He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to Detroit." So he got out of his car, and he came up to me, and he said, "Could I see some identification?" I said, "Sure." So I pulled out my wallet. I pulled out a driver's license, and he said, "Do you have other identification?" I said, "Sure." So I showed him some credit cards. The guy says, "Would you like a ride into town?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I certainly would. Thank you." Before I get in his car, I pulled out my pistol and I tossed it about 20 feet. He didn't see it, and his wife didn't see me do that. And then I got in the car, and he said, it's not safe to be on the streets tonight. There's a lot of excitement." And I said, "Yeah, I know. I've heard about the search that's going on here for that skyjacker." So he said, "Yeah, there's a lot of FBI around here." I said, "I can imagine."
They drove the couple of miles into town where the police chief dropped Martin off.
And my inclination was to grab a car, hotwire a car, and get out of the area. But then, on reflection, I said, "No, I can't do that. If a car comes up missing here, reported stolen, that chief of police has my name, and he could connect 2 and 2. So I said, "I can't do that." And I decided I couldn't hitchhike either. It's too hot. So I walked around, and I noticed a bar at the end of the road and at the street there, and I walked into the bar and got up and sat down, ordered a drink. There were about 10 or 15 people in this bar. They were looking at me. Yeah, they were looking at me. And I wondered about that. So I went into the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, and I looked a mess. I looked a mess. Both eyes were brown, and my chin was looked like it had been ripped and a little bloody, and my hair was a mess. So yeah, I was messed up there.
He put water on his hair and combed it and tried to clean off some of the blood. He then went back into the bar and ordered a hamburger and a beer. Around midnight, he went to a hotel. The hotel clerk was listening to radio reports about the hijacker. She joked, "You're not the hijacker, are you?" Martin just smiled and went up to his room.
I was looking out the window, looking down the street. There were a lot of cars on the street, and there were 2 men walking down the street, and they weren't in suits, and they were looking in windows, and yeah, I figured they were the FBI. I understand they had about 200 FBI agents searching, plus local police and so forth.
The money was soon found in a field by a soybean farmer. A couple of hours later, another farmer ran over the gun with his tractor. The search for Martin was intensifying. He had a friend come pick him up and drive him back to Michigan. He didn't think anybody knew who he was, so he just went home. And immediately, he started making plans to do it all again, without losing the money this time. He bragged to a friend about it, but Martin didn't know that the FBI was already watching his house. So, you do end up getting arrested?
Yes, I do.
Almost 6 days after Martin hijacked the plane, a dozen FBI agents surrounded him as he was walking home one night. They'd found his fingerprints on the plane and on the note that he'd handed to the flight attendant. They'd also searched his house and found ammunition and parts of a gun. He was charged with 2 counts of federal aircraft piracy. Part of his lawyer's defense was that the jump Martin made was impossible. There was no way anyone could have survived it. It didn't work. Martin was given 2 life sentences. And in 1973, less than a year later, airports started installing metal detectors. I wonder if you ever thought, when you were in the courtroom hearing the 2 natural life sentences and thinking to yourself, I didn't even get the money.
Yeah, of course. I said that I got 2 life sentences and it cost me about $2,000 or $3,000 to put the everything together. This thing took about 5 months. I did a lot of driving around and spending a lot of time looking at airports and seeing the sights and getting all the equipment together, the gun, and I thought that I got the life and it cost me $2,000. Yeah.
You feel bad about it?
Oh God, do I feel bad about it? I really don't know what to say. I don't feel bad about anything. I don't feel bad about anything. Should I feel bad?
Martin was sent to Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary in Kansas, where one day a fellow hijacker knocked on his door.
Knocks on my door and he said, can I come in? I said, yes, come on in. I said, what's up? He said, how would you like to leave this place in a helicopter? And I said, well, I paused. I don't know. We're going to have to discuss this. We'll have to discuss the details before I make a decision on something like that. But yeah, let's look into this.
We'll have that part of the story in our next episode. Criminal is produced by Lauren Spohr, Nadia Wilson, and me. Audio mixed by Rob Byers. Special thanks to Stephanie Cohen and Danny Wissentowski. Julian Alexander makes original illustrations for each episode of Criminal. You can see them at thisiscriminal.com. We're on Facebook and Twitter @Criminal Show. Criminal is recorded in the studios of North Carolina Public Radio, WUNC. We're a proud member of Radiotopia from PRX.